AnimeIndecision.
Greetings, I'm Demonac.
And I'm Orestria, and this is AI Tries Ajin, episode 6.
Yeah, this episode started right where the last one left off, and there was a lot of action going on, that's for sure.
A lot of action, a lot of conflict, a lot of development. We like development.
Yeah, some episodes we don't learn much at all. This episode, yeah, things are moving now. We don't know where they're going, but things are moving now.
So I think the most important thing we learned this episode are the stakes we're going to be dealing with. Because up until now, it's been like, well, how much am I supposed to really worry about anything that's happening when we know that they're just going to survive?
The characters are completely immortal, so you have to give them stakes somehow. And honestly, Kenny doesn't seem to have a lot of loved ones to worry about, so that aspect is pretty weak.
Up until now, our worst case scenario was he gets captured and tortured forever, and he's already been captured and tortured.
For a little while.
And he kind of seems not too much worse for wear for it mentally.
Yeah, I mean, we had this issue where, okay, they introduced really early on, there's a super weapon that works really well, tranquilizers. Like, okay, it seemed like you think, oh, that's actually too easy, so now they're not that great. And, okay, Sato, with the Hat Man, demonstrated pretty well that, they can work around that. Although the tranquilizers are still a serious problem. But now they've added a new actual form of stakes for our otherwise invincible protagonists. Or antagonists.
And it's a kind of existential stake, too. It's someone can cause you to grow a new head. Are you then really you, or is the current you gone?
Yeah, and it's not even just philosophical. We don't know if the head they grow back will have all the same memories, or if the personality might change somehow. But of course, if you're the head that's getting lost, then you're dying for real.
That's what specifically mentioned. I'm going to force you to watch your body grow that new head.
That's pretty rough. So now there's definitely something to worry about, at least when dealing with other Ajin who are aware of this, or presumably the authorities become aware of this at some point. I don't know if they care, because it doesn't solve their problem. For everyone else, the world goes on. But that's not just scary on an existential level. That's scary if you care about a character on a fiction level, because they can totally do this. This is not an idle threat. His plot armor does not necessarily protect against this. Our protagonist is Kenny right now, but if they do this to him, if they kill him off, he gets replaced with another Kenny.
That could even be what they want to explore. They could want to explore what parts of your personality would stick around and stuff. Like, that could be a direction they want to go. I don't think it's likely, but...
No, but it's out there. It is not an idle threat. And that's a good sign, because if you know, they make a Han Solo spin-off movie, and it's a prequel. He has 17 layers of, like, Super Saiyan plot armor. There is actually literally nothing bad that can happen to him.
He can't even, like, lose an arm. So back to, like, Ajin.
We learned something else very important about Kenny, though.
Oh, God.
It's not 100% explicit, but if not, it's close enough. We learned that he is either a psychopath or at the very least borderline. And this really sort of gives a better idea of how his relatives thought of him in what little we've seen of them, and how he's reacted to different situations. Why, every time somebody helps him, he is asking them, he really wants to know, like, why are you helping me? Why would you help me? He doesn't understand.
I really liked this revelation because, to me, there were a lot of moments where Kenny reacted in a way that I wasn't totally convinced by. Like, it didn't seem like a completely natural reaction. And when I look back at those moments, and I'm like, it would totally make sense if he's a psychopath.
I don't think they've done a perfect job of it, but I will say there are a lot of those moments where it does make more sense when you look back at the context, that he just doesn't have that kind of emotional reasoning that normal people have. But when we say he's a psychopath, you got to keep in mind, we're not saying that he is bad. He just doesn't have the emotion. He is, in fact, very clearly a psychopath who has chosen to be good. As far as he understands morals, he tries to do the right thing in every circumstance, just like his mother has been telling him all those years.
And that's another reason why I like this revelation, is it kind of helps with two of the things that didn't sit super well with me before. The scenes with his mother, like, being like, you need to be a good person, always felt weird.
It's
Not
very
wrong,
weird.
because mothers totally want their kids to be a good person, but it always just felt weird the way it was, like,
The degree to which it was emphasized made it seem like, what is wrong with this woman? Well, maybe it's not what's wrong with this woman. She just knew that her son didn't have that sense of emotion, and she was trying very hard to compensate by convincing his, or at least impressing upon his intellect, the need to do the right thing, to do the moral thing, to be a good person.
And then the other thing it really helped me with was, I always thought it was really weird the show was trying to put a connection between Jesus, but then that Kenny was so easily willing to cut it off with Jesus just because his mom told him to. And when you think that he's a psychopath and he doesn't actually have that connection, like he's being friends with this kid because he knows that kids are supposed to hang out with other kids,
Yeah,
and then when his mom says,
or
"Oh, not that,"
he may have been getting something out. He may have just sort of enjoyed what they were doing in terms of whatever sense that psychopaths enjoy things, because generally they do. It's just, it's very different. It's whatever satisfied his needs, his intellect at that time.
Do you remember if he was upset or not during that dead dog thing?
We see so little detail of the dead dog scene, but I am certain now, why does his sister think he's not a good person? I think it's because, and they're going to show it again, I'm sure, lots, because they love that scene. They're going to show us a lot more of it now, and we're going to find out that that is a big chunk of why she doesn't think he's a good person, why she thinks he's trash. Because I am pretty sure he didn't understand why the dog dying was a big deal.
Like, I feel like I distinctly recall her crying, but I don't recall what he was doing in that scene. And I feel like if I look back at it, he was probably pretty,
I feel like every time we see that, it's kind of shot around and, like, barely touches on, like, you don't have a lot of time looking at his face. You don't get any real reaction from him, and I think it was very intentional, and this is why.
Yeah.
So that was very interesting, and it is very clear in the present. He will do things that are incredibly not a good idea. Things that are the opposite of to his advantage, like turning on Sato and literally shooting Sato to death. Now, he knows Sato will survive, which is probably why, according to his moral index, is like, no, that's probably okay, because these people won't come back, so I'm going to save them. Shooting them when they're defenseless is wrong. But you notice, even in a scene just before that, he's walking by, he had totally reconciled, like he was not particularly bothered at all by the dead armed officers. And there was like a second there where you're like, why does he not give a rat's ass that this guy killed a bunch of people to get him, even though he doesn't seem to want to kill anyone?
You just reminded me how much that scene pissed me off, but it no longer pissed me off because then they reveal he's a psychopath.
Yeah. So he literally just rationalizes, these people were trying to kill you and stop you, so you killed them in self-defense. Makes total sense. I'm going to say that's okay.
Not to mention, I do think that he is of the opinion that torturing Ajin is wrong, so the scientists were in the wrong.
I think like, that's pretty clear.
Even before he knew he was an Ajin, when he saw that like cell phone YouTube video of an Ajin being tortured, he was like, oh, that's not right. Yeah. I don't know how to feel about a show where it had a bunch of issues and then it actually managed to do something that makes me feel better about the issues.
As long as the show was carrying you along to that point, I think it's actually a good thing. It's a very dangerous balance, because you don't want to have those issues where you piss people off and they stop watching, then nobody wins.
Well, I think it really was risky, because I would say of most of the anime I've watched recently, Kenny's been one of the hardest protagonists to get behind. He's not easy to relate to, and he hasn't been. I mean, I watched Tokyo Ghoul, and I relate to that character. Like, even the guy in Parasite got kind of psychopathy in parts, but, you know, you got to like him first.
Yeah, no, the guy in Parasite was pretty likable, really. Kenny was not an empty shell protagonist. The show was focused on his perception of morals and his perception of reality in a way that an audience avatar is not. But what you learned of him and his perceptions were all off and weird, and it did not make him likable at all.
I'm definitely not saying that I thought he was a bad character. I'm just saying, like,
No, no. Yeah,
he wasn't what kept you watching this show. There are
definitely
shows
not.
where the main character is what keeps you watching. This was like, you're curious about the plot, so you keep watching, but this kid's a weirdo.
Yeah, but now that with this extra dimension, I am way more interested in him and his journey and all that, because it is a very interesting thing you don't explore very often, and they're obviously going to explore it in great detail because they've been focusing so much before we cared.
I've honestly been trying to think of another protagonist who's just a psychopath.
But I'm sure there are a number of anti-heroes that are effectively that, where they're just there to commit violence and advance the plot. Like Alucard, it's hard to say that he really cares about anything in any way that a normal human would. Now he's not a human, whatever, but he's pretty close to just a psychopath protagonist. But you're not looking into and caring about how he emotionally views the world. You're just watching crap happen.
That's definitely the extra layer. I don't think I've ever seen a show that not only had a psychopath as the main character, but had a major theme be his psychopathy. So it's really very exciting.
Yeah, and it is a great angle that he doesn't have the emotions, he doesn't have the moral center, but he has chosen to go ahead and do it. And I'm sure we'll learn more about why he's chosen this. Maybe it's just because his mother pounded it into him, but I don't know. I feel like at some point he had to have made an intellectual decision about it.
And it's really exciting because you know the show is going to throw things at him specifically to challenge that and to see if there is a point where he breaks or to see how he manages to keep it up is really intriguing.
Yeah, because we've already seen in this episode that he looks at the situation. Here are these guys who were literally torturing me, but they're unarmed and defenseless. It's wrong to kill them, and I am literally going to endanger myself massively, maybe more massively than he thought at the time. He's going to endanger himself massively, lose an ally in order to help these people just because it's wrong to kill them.
And he also valued, like, keeping his word, because he kind of promised to get them out of there before he found out that he was actually in danger, and he was like, well, I'm still going to get you out of here.
He had to think about that one, but yes, that's the decision that he made.
And then we had another Black Ghost on Black Ghost battle.
Yeah, black on black violence.
Why's it gotta be black? Anyway.
It was less black this time because there was better lighting.
It was much easier to follow, and it was much cooler as a result, for sure.
Even then, we're learning other things at the time.
Sato keeps tantalizing us,
Yeah.
being like, oh, he's different. Oh, why is his ghost acting like that? And I'm like, spit it out, old man!
Yeah, well, he doesn't know, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, Kenny's ghost is different because it doesn't follow his instructions in the same way. It seems to be sort of trying to figure out what he wants, as opposed to literally doing what he wants or says.
Oh my god, maybe it's because it's lacking an emotional...
It may
an
be
emotional connection because he's a psychopath. Oh!
Sato even said that he specified, we were wondering previously, humans can sometimes see them in moments of great emotion.
Oh god! I didn't think about that till just right the bleep now. Oh. I like our little talks.
I'm really glad this show is turning out to be more interesting that way. Because early on it was hard to tell. There was a lot of stuff out there. A lot of these shows will present you a lot of mysteries and then have crappy answers or not answer or just move on.
I was always in between intrigued and having many, many reservations. Yeah. And I would say this episode has tipped the scale. I'm way more intrigued than reserved. I just want to go on the ride. I want to see what they're going to do. Even if I think there's
going to be a lot more to find out. I want to find out where Officer Not Dead is going to figure into this in the future. Because she's still hanging around. She's clearly going to be important. But we haven't got a good idea what she does yet, other than she's being treated as the personal bodyguard of Officer White Guy.
I busted out laughing when he was like, "You don't go fight them. Then what would happen if someone came after me?"
Yeah, I don't care about any of this other. You know what? That makes me think maybe he's a psychopath too. He has his own set of morals. I would not be surprised if they want to explore that. So like maybe this is a thing that's going to build up to at some point them sort of dueling morals. Two
I'm
psychopaths
laughing.
trying to explain and debate and convince each other that their way of thinking is the right one.
I'm laughing because it's so friggin' perfect.
Maybe.
Oh, I'm so excited. And and the other reason I'm so excited is we have no clue what's gonna happen next episode.
We really don't. We end the episode, we don't even see what happens to the protagonist, which they can get away with because it's not even really a cliffhanger.
Not even really.
We know
Oh, no,
he's going to be
died.
okay, but we
No, he did
don't
not.
know where, we don't know what he's going to be doing next. We do know now, though, that Sato, he is just in it for the killing. Like, he really does not like humanity. He enjoys killing. He's going to be out and out, like, evil. And he's going to try and get allies. And we know that he is against our protagonist, who is also opposed by the government and who knows what else.
Kenny's back in the situation where there's a manhunt after him still. They finished it up with a news report on the fact that he escaped from the building.
Yeah.
So he's being manhunted. Everyone in Japan knows his face and knows that he's an Ajin and knows that he's on the loose. He has no resources with him. He doesn't have a vehicle. He doesn't have money.
He doesn't have Jesus.
He doesn't have Jesus. He's been washed out to sea, literally. So we don't know where he's going to show up. We don't know what his goal is going to be. We don't know how fast people are going to get onto him. Like, we don't know what kind of resources Sato has to try and hunt him down. Like, just...
Yeah, so everything is up in the air right now. Okay, one last thought. So now that we know that he's a psychopath, we have a pretty good idea why his sister thinks he's trash. Do we care about her even remotely more at this point?
You know what? Just because your brother is a psychopath doesn't mean you have to be a jerk to him. I mean, I still love you.
Yeah, there we go. So we'll see where Kenny turns up next time.
Bye-bye.
If you found that useful or entertaining, or if you enjoy cookies, hit the like button. Just completely invincible. He's going to shoot first, and he's going to shoot last.
God.